What's going on, everyone? So Bradley Beal was recently talking and diving into his inevitable trade to the Phoenix Suns. And at the time when he was traded to Phoenix, it really came out of left field. It really seemed very surprising. It was like, wow, didn't really see that coming. And there were murmurs, there were rumors, even the year prior, of Bradley Beal potentially being on the move in Miami, being one of those destinations. And he even talked about how the Suns weren't even an option for a long time. That even for him, it kind of came out of left field, that he thought Miami, that was the place he was going to end up. That's where he wanted to go. Really dove into a lot of different things. I definitely recommend going in and checking out the interview that he had. But one of the things that he revealed was the Milwaukee Bucks and the situation with the Milwaukee Bucks, and that basically boiled down to Milwaukee and Miami, that those seemed to be like the two places that he was most likely to go to. He was really on the fence with the Milwaukee Bucks. And he said that with Milwaukee, his biggest concern was that they were going to trade Middleton, and that Khris Middleton was most likely going to be routed to a third team, that he was going to go to another contender, wasn't really going to go to Washington. Now, he talked about how, who really wanted to sign or be traded in Washington at that time. He talked about how in 2017, that was the best team he was on with the Wizards, and that he believed that the Cleveland Cavaliers, they could have really won that series and gave them a run for their money, but they never were able to actually see that through. They were never able to actually get that done. They got eliminated by the Boston Celtics that year, and he talked about how after that, everything just kept kind of declining, and then no one really wanted to go. And then we got the word that Middleton, if that were to happen, was going to end up being routed to a third team as a contender. So probably be one of those things where Washington's just getting more assets rather than players. So they're just getting, a couple things from Milwaukee as far as picks and stuff go, and then turning Middleton into more assets that they could kind of get and hit the full reset button, right? Because at that point, you're trading Bradley Beal, you're looking to rebuild, right? And that's where they're at right now. But Bradley Beal said something about Khris Middleton, and I find it really odd, and I want to talk about and break down this whole situation, but I want to play the segment where he talks about what I want to dive into, and, of course, hear your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. But let me play this clip for you, watch the clip, and then let's talk about it. So here's that clip.
Milwaukee, I was like straddling the fence. I didn't really like, they were trading Middleton. I hate I'm telling this story, but whatever. They were trading Mitty, but Mitty had a player option. So he has to opt in, right? In order for the trade. Yeah. I don't know many people gonna opt in to get traded to DC. Not at that time. Not at that time. It was 2017, maybe. Yep. At that time, we wasn't good. We wasn't winning nothing. So I'm like, the loyalty part in that, like trading somebody who won y'all a championship the previous year, right, and was a key piece to y'all winning the championship. Yeah, I'm like, sit right. That ain't sit right with me. Yeah, and granted, I feel like we competitors. Like I can fill that role very nicely, but for sure, I ain't like that. I just didn't like the.
So there it was, right from Bradley Beal's mouth. Again, talks about how he was kind of on the fence with the Milwaukee Bucks, that he really didn't like the fact that Khris Middleton was such a huge component, such a big piece in the trade department, or in the championship department, for them winning their first championship, and he felt like, that was kind of shady. Here's the thing. How else was the Milwaukee Bucks supposed to get Bradley Beal? Right? Like, now, they could have traded Jrue Holiday, as they ended up doing for Damian Lillard, but even trading for Damian Lillard, giving up Jrue Holiday was the wrong choice. They should have kept Jrue Holiday. They should have traded Khris Middleton to go get Damian Lillard, and they should have traded Khris Middleton and kept Jrue Holiday to go and get Bradley Beal. Why? Because having Jrue Holiday as that point of attack, as the defensive guy, as that 3-and-D guy, that you need desperately, because Bradley Beal isn't this all defensive stopper. I mean, and that guy can't play more than 20 games a season, right? So Milwaukee, in all honesty, dodged a bullet there with the potential Bradley Beal trade. I think the Phoenix Suns, I think that was the worst decision they made. And I even said as soon as they did it, like people were ready and clamoring and saying like, oh, just give Phoenix the championship now and all that stuff. And I was like, I don't see it. I think the worst thing that they did was trade for Bradley Beal. I thought they were fine. I thought they could have been a real contender. Get Kevin Durant, get the quality pieces that you need to kind of fit around Booker and Durant and go win a championship. But they had to go get the big name. You got the new owner syndrome with Matt Ishbia, and it's just I just don't see them winning a championship. I just don't, right? And so, in my opinion, I think the Milwaukee Bucks really dodged the bullet because, again, you would have gotten another star that is only going to give you 40 games a year, if that. Right? You're only going to get a guy that is only reliable half the time. Right? The best ability is availability. Now, look, Khris Middleton hasn't been, this model of health either, but still, right? Like, if you were going to trade for Bradley Beal, just like when they trade for Damian Lillard, you should have given up Khris Middleton. Because Khris Middleton is less of a need than a guy like a Drew Holiday. Because Drew Holiday is that, hard-nosed, do everything, get after it, on the defensive end type of guy, right? He's the guy you need. It's not a coincidence that the Milwaukee Bucks got Drew Holiday and won a championship the same year. It's not a coincidence that the Boston Celtics got Drew Holiday and won a championship the same year, right? Drew Holiday is that piece. He is that guy that every team needs. He is a sizable point guard, 6'4" with good size, good length, can essentially defend 1 through 3. And you need that alongside a guy like a Bradley Beal. You need that alongside a guy like a Damian Lillard. And that's where I think the Milwaukee Bucks really went wrong. But again, it's Bradley Beal's entire argument for why and how he feels about the situation, it doesn't make any sense. Again, how were you planning on getting to the Milwaukee Bucks? They would have had to give up somebody. So are you saying that they should have traded Drew Holiday over Khris Middleton? Okay, well, don't you have the same argument? They didn't win with Khris Middleton. They won when they got Drew Holiday. So if anything, and Khris Middleton, yes, he was solid, third guy, but Drew Holiday was the guy that had the assignments. He had the tough assignments. He had some big games for them, right? Like Drew Holiday was the biggest factor, in my opinion, right? And yet you wanted them to trade Drew Holiday to go and get you, and then it would have been the same issue that you see right now with the Milwaukee Bucks. Oh, and by the way, you wouldn't have had a point guard. At least Damian Lillard can run the point. He's been a point guard his entire career, right? So then who are you having to play the point, right? It makes even more sense with Bradley Beal to keep Drew Holiday over Khris Middleton than with Damian Lillard, right? Because at least Dame you can justify as like he is the guard, he is the point guard, even though Drew could have been the two if you needed him to, and kind of had those two in the backcourt. But it's just, to me, it's so silly. Like I was listening to him kind of break down the Milwaukee Bucks and that situation, and I was just like what are you talking? Like what? How? Like they couldn't just sign you, right? It's not like you were a free agent. Even if you were, they wouldn't have had the money to go sign. So the only way to get it done is via trade, and you have to give up somebody. Now, he did talk about how, that Khris Middleton would have had to opt in and all that stuff. But again, he was going to get routed to a third team. So he would have went to a team that he wanted to go to, that team would have wanted him. It would have worked out for him. He would have been fine. And you would have had a much better team because you would have had Drew Holiday, Bradley Beal, Giannis, Brook Lopez, and then however else they line up the three at that point, right? Because things probably are a little different, right? If you have Drew Holiday and Bradley Beal compared to Dame and Khris Middleton. So I get, that maybe the Bucks were looking at it as like with Bradley Beal, like, hey, if we get Beal, right, then it makes more sense to trade Drew Holiday because now we don't, or it makes more sense to trade Khris Middleton because we don't have to solve the point guard position. Bradley Beal could play the 2 or the 3 if we needed to, right? Like, that's kind of the approach they could go. Where with Dame, the justification is that Damian Lillard is a point guard. So, but even then, I still think that they made the wrong decision. I think if they would have kept Jrue Holiday, one, I kind of question how good the Celtics would have been. I'm not saying that they still wouldn't have won and that they still wouldn't have been good, but don't underestimate the value, leadership, right? Toughness, camaraderie, right? Like, again, Jrue Holiday is the kind of guy that you need to win. And I just think if the Milwaukee Bucks had Jrue Holiday, they'd be in a much better position with Bradley Beal, with Damian Lillard, you name it, right? And it's just, I saw that and I was just like, one, it was cool. I always think it's fascinating to hear these kind of like what if stories, like, oh, I was about to go here. And he talked about how Miami didn't want him, which good on Miami. Miami should have stayed as far away from him as possible. But I always think the what ifs are very interesting. I always find those fascinating. And I thought that this was really fascinating. But I didn't understand the logic in like, well, I felt like it's cold world, like it's a business. That's when I really realized that this is a business. And it's like, Khris Middleton doesn't make sense over Jrue Holiday if they go and get you. Like, it probably wasn't anything other than like, okay, if we have Bradley Beal at the 2, right, or we could slide him to the 3, we're going to need a playmaker, we're going to need a point guard, we're going to need somebody that can initiate, and we won a championship with Jrue Holiday in that role, right? Like, I don't get the logic, is my point. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion, and I pass a question on you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. What do you think? How do you feel with your thoughts? Do you agree with my points? Do you think, like, yeah, like, I don't understand what Bradley Beal's talking about. That was clearly the correct move. That was clearly the correct choice. Do you think that Bradley Beal's just, again, just because he's a player doesn't mean he understands the ins and outs. And, again, it's just like, how else were they supposed to get you? Right? Like, you're making $50 million a year. Right? Like, it's not like they could just, trade Bobby Portis and now you're here. Like, no, like you would have had to give up something and someone significant. And Khris Middleton's contract made sense. Right? Like, Bradley Beal's acting like he was making $20 million a year. Right? Where it's like, man, you should have just kept Jrue Holiday and Khris Middleton. Okay, who are they trading? Like, even if they packaged Brook Lopez and Bobby Portis, they still need somebody like a Khris Middleton to fill in the salary. It's just, I thought it was silly. That's just me personally. But, however you feel, whatever your thoughts are, I'd love to hear it. So let me know down in the comments below. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. How's it not? So we enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe channel, hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one.